Hi everyone again. We're going to be looking at the VLOOKUPs today. And VLOOKUP is actually part of like the lookup formula on Excel. And basically what VLOOKUP does is you are able to look up information from somewhere else based on a unique code, a unique field common to both sides. So you have a table A and you want to get data from table B, and then you're able to use one unique code in table A to match to table B and then bring in data from table B. For VLOOKUP to work, you need something that will be unique on both sides. But that is what you're going to use to match it up. If you don't have unique items, then you can't use VLOOKUP. You probably have to use something else. So I've sent this data to the chat now. Please confirm that you have it and you're able to open it. And you can use this to practice after the lesson. Is anyone familiar with VLOOKUP here?
Yes.
Okay. Is this something you use regularly?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good. Okay. So if you have any tips while we do this, please chip in. Feel free to chip in.
Okay.
VLOOKUP is something that's, I mean, if you work with data, there's no way you won't use VLOOKUP. In my job, I don't think that a day actually goes by that I don't use the VLOOKUP function. So you actually need VLOOKUP if you don't want to do things manually. On this table, we have, so this is let's assume this is like a payroll, the pay data for an organization. So we have, every organization will have an employee ID, which will be unique to that individual. Then, of course, you have on your HR system, you have the first name. It sits a lot of personal information. On this table here, we have the employee ID, we have the last name, and we have the first name. And then we have the pay report on the right side here, which has the employee ID and has the pay. So this one has employee ID, has the pay, but has no first name, it has no last name. This one has the last name and it has the first name. So what we want to do is we want to populate the table on the right, and we want to bring in the other information that is missing from this table. And the way we can do it is to use a VLOOKUP. And the reason why we can use a VLOOKUP is because we have something unique that is on both tables. On the table on the left, it's got the employee ID, and the table on the right also has employee ID. So we can use that employee ID to look up, to bring information from one table to the other. And the first thing we need to do when we do a lookup, I'm gonna show you two methods. One, the first one we're gonna use the dialog, the box, and then the other one we're just gonna type it straight in. Anytime you need to put a formula in Excel, we know that we have to start with equal to. And in this case, we want to use a VLOOKUP. So I will start with VLOOKUP. So start by typing your VLOOKUP. I'll open a bracket and then I'll click on this FX here to bring the function argument box. And the first thing it's going to ask me for is the lookup value. What am I looking up? My lookup value in this case is the employee ID. So I want to look up employee ID. I want to bring the first name of this employee with this ID 990678. So I'll click on that. That's my lookup value. And then I go to the next box and it's asking me, where do I want to look up the value? So I need to point to the table where the information sits, where I need to look up this value. So what I will do is I will select the table. That is where I want Excel to look for the information for me. So I have a table here of 3 columns. And then I go to the next one, and it's asking me, now you have given me a table. What column do you want me to bring the information from? So for this table, we have 3 columns. We have column B is the first column, column C is the second column, and column D is the third column. So it's asking me what column do I want? So what column do I want here? I want the first name. What column? I need to put a column number, either 1, 2, or 3. What column do I need to put here? We need to put column 3. We're going to have to engage in this lesson. And then the range lookup is asking me, what this does is it will ask you, if I can't find this item that you're looking for, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just not bring anything? Or do you want me to find something that is close to it and bring it in? So in this case, my employee employee with ID number 990678. That is the person I want. I don't want anyone close to that. I don't want you to look for an employee ID that is close to that and bring in the first name. So so you either put true or false. And when you say false, what it means is that you want an exact match. If you can't find it, then it's fine. So I want an exact match, bring it in. So I put false here and I do okay. And it's brought in Brad from this table. If we do a search on this table for 990,678, we can see this is 990,678, and the first name here is Brad. So it has brought in Brad. We want to do last name. And we type equal to Vlookup, open a bracket, we'll open the box, the function argument box. Our lookup value, we're still looking up our employee ID, because that is what is common to both tables. It will be employee ID. My table selects the table. Column index, in this case, we're looking for last name. So my last name is on column 2. So I'll put 2 here. And then my range lookup, I want an exact match. That means I will put false. I'll put false here and okay.
Let me, excuse me, sorry. Sorry to take you back.
Yeah.
The part where you said table range.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would?
The table array.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, the table array. Yeah.
Yeah. So what it wants is, we're looking up information from another table.
Yeah.
So what it's asking for is, where are you looking that information up from? That is what you need to put. So you select, so what we've done is we've selected this table here. That is where our information is coming from.
Okay. Also, you just
So you
highlight the table, the
so
entire
just
table.
once you're there, yeah, just select the table. So I start from B3
Okay.
and
Down to
select
the.
all the way down to
Okay.
D20.
Okay.
And that is how, so just make sure you select, because that is, if you don't, you need to select where you want it to look for the information, and that is the only place it's going to check. So you have to make sure that you select the right table, and then if it's like, usually when you use the VLOOKUP, it will be like a long, long
Okay.
data. So you just make sure you select everything.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
it's like an exceptionally long data, you can also select columns as against. So if you select, so instead of selecting B3 to D20 like we've done, you can select all columns like that.
Okay.
But I'm not going to select all column here. I'm just
Okay.
going to select the table.
Then secondly, you said the lookup value. You said J4. So are you
Yeah.
saying you are looking up from the new table, the table that you're
Yeah.
transferring value from? That's the table, not the first table.
So the lookup value has to be common to both tables.
Yeah, I
So
get
my
what.
lookup value, I've picked it from the second table, table B.
Okay, so
And it has to be here as well. So it will look for that lookup value and then return something to you.
okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, that's clear.
Okay.
The third, it says the column index number. Yeah, you put number 2.
Yeah. And the reason why I have number 2 is look at this table here on the left.
Yeah,
My table is made up of 3 columns.
yeah.
Column B is my first column on that table.
Okay,
Column C is my second column. Column D
okay,
is my third column.
okay,
So what I'm looking for the last name. If you look at this table, my last name is on the second column, which is 2,
okay,
which is why I have 2 here. When
okay.
I was doing first name is on the third column, which is why I had 3 when I did the first name. And okay, and then it brings out the last name. Let me show you the first name that we did. The first name we had column index 3 because that is the first name is on the third column. So you need to tell it what column it needs to return. And that is what you will get. Is that clear? Okay.
So we have to do this individually.
No, it's not clear.
No, it's not clear. Okay. Okay, so what is not clear?
Actually, I couldn't. I didn't start up with you guys since I was trying to sort out my internet. So I just came on. I saw VLOOKUP. I didn't even know how you got here. I'm sorry about that. Anyway.
Okay, this is the first thing we have done. So I'm going to do it again. Okay. And just as a short background, VLOOKUP, you use VLOOKUP to extract data from one place to the other. So we have
Hi,
2
Kemi.
tables.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry to disturb you. Would it be possible to send the data so that maybe people can do while you explain it to them?
Okay, I can see some people joined late because
It's
I've
in the
already
chat.
sent the data. It's in the chat. Can you access it?
Okay.
I
I
mean,
have
if
it.
you can't access it, I mean, I think if you joined after, maybe you might not be able to access it.
Yeah.
Can you check if you can
Yeah,
access
I
it?
can't. Maybe somebody can post on Telegram for us. Ayo Deji, if you can, please.
Please can someone repost it because to attach it again, I have to close this.
Yeah.
So please kindly repost that on the Telegram group or
Sorry,
maybe in the chat again.
sorry to cut you off. I had a question. So I've gone ahead to do what exactly you've just demonstrated, but on that bracket, what came out for me wasn't their names. It came out with, I quote, first name.
It came out with, sorry?
So on that first, so where it says first name, right? See where you've clicked the box. What came out for me wasn't their actual name. What came out was, I quote, first name.
Okay. Let me go through this again.
Okay.
And then you can share your screen and then we'll see what you're doing. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So let me just quickly, for the people who did not get what we did the first time, let me just do it again. And then you can share your screen and then we'll see what has gone wrong. So the first thing to do with VLOOKUP is to
Kemi,
type.
can you hold on a little bit? Let me just post this thing to the group so that everybody gets
Okay,
works at once.
all
Yeah.
right.
Someone has posted it already.
Someone has
Thank you.
posted it. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
No
you.
problem. No problem
Yeah.
then.
So everyone has the data now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we start with equal to. Anytime you need to type a formula in, you start with equal to. And then we type in VLOOKUP and open a bracket. So I'm going to click this FX box there to bring out the function box. And this is my function box. The first thing it's going to ask for is your lookup value. what do you want to match between the two tables? What do I look for in the other table? And in this case, we are using the employee ID. So I'm going to click on the first employee ID, cell J4. That is my lookup value. And then it's going to ask for your table array. Where do you want this table? Where do you want to look up the value that you want to look up? So I want to look it up on the table on the left. So I'm going to select the table on the left. So I'll start from the first cell and select all the way down. So it's selected cell B3 to D20. And you can actually see the selection on the screen. And the third thing it's going to ask you is, this table that you have selected, it has 3 columns. Where do you want the data to come from? Which of the columns do you want your data to come from? We are looking for the first name. So in this table, we can see that the first name is on the 3rd column. The table on the left has 3 columns. Employee ID is column 1, last name is column 2, first name is column 3. So I want first name, so I'm going to put 3 here because I want you to return whatever is in column 3. And then the last box is asking you, if I can't find what you're looking for, should I return the closest match? If you want it to return the closest match, then you put true. If you want it to return exactly what you're looking for, then you have to put false. This is like, this data is, you cannot return something that is closed. The employee with this ID has to be that employee. We can't put any other person. So in this case, I would do false. And a lot of the time, you actually use false. It's very, very rare that I use true. So I'm going to put false, and then I'll click OK. And if you now look, so it's brought in Brad. If you look at this employee ID on this table, we can see that's the employee ID there. I'm going to highlight it in yellow. And the first name is Brad. So it's brought in the right name. Is that clear? I'll do it again for the last name. So it would be equal to Vlookup. I'll open the box. I would select my lookup value first, which is still the employee ID. I'll select the table, which is this table on the left. Column index, in this case, I'm looking for the last name now. The last name is on column 2. So I'll put 2 here. And of course, I want an exact match. So I'll put false in the last box. And okay. And it's brought in Pete. So my employee, the employee with ID number 9906788 is Brad Pitt. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So sorry, I don't know who was talking, who had an error just now. And I said you can share your screen afterwards.
It was me, but I got it now. Thank you.
Okay, so you have it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we use the dialog, we use the formula box in this example. I want us to do it together so that we know how to do it before I move on to another one. Is someone willing to help us? Who wants to help us? Let's do the next one, please. Can someone help us, please?
Okay, you type in equal to Vlookup.
Equal to Vlookup.
Yeah. Then you click on the fx function.
Okay. So because I haven't opened the brackets, it's not sure what you want to do, which is why it's come up like this. Of course, it's gone to most recently used, so you can easily just pick your VLOOKUP and okay. And then you get that box. but it's duplicated the VLOOKUP. So I will do equals to VLOOKUP, open a bracket, and then click on FX, and then it's sure that it's VLOOKUP you want to use. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, then we'll type in the range of the of the table, like it should be I don't know, but I think it's by J4. So it's like the range of from, I think it's the beginning, the range of the table. So
No, we're looking for the lookup value now. So it has to be one value. So it won't be a range.
okay,
So what are we looking
so
at
it's on
there?
J5, so it should be J5.
It should be J5. Yeah, so J5, okay.
Then the table is the range of the table they are looking up from.
Okay. Where?
That's from employee ID up until Julia.
Up onto Julia, okay.
Then so we are doing first name, so it would be the third column, 3.
Okay, 3.
Then that would be false.
That'll be
But
false.
why do we use true? What like you said false. So if we are going to use true, why would you be using true?
You use true if you want something close to it. We're going to use true before we finish today.
Okay.
So we're going to use true. And then you see how, in what situation you might want to use true. So
Okay.
we'll get to true.
Okay.
False, okay. And of course we have Prince. 830385. That's Prince William. Okay. Okay. So is everyone comfortable with this at this time? If you don't know how to do this, please talk now. Okay, so we have, so we've done it using a dialog box, right? So the level we want to get to is, we want to get to a point where we can just type it in without using a dialog box. And it's very easy to do, okay? So we'll start, as usual, we'll start with equal to VLOOKUP. When we open a bracket, can you see this formula here? So it's guiding you. So this is just like the box. It's guiding you on what you need to input next. So if you remember the box that we had, this is the lookup value. This is the table array. This is the column index number. And this is the range lookup. So once you start, it's asking you for your lookup value. What will be our lookup value here?
J4.
J4. So if you click on J4, can you see that the lookup value is highlighted, it's bold. And when you put a comma, it moves you to the next one, the table array, because you've satisfied that first condition. And then the table array is asking you to put in your table array. And what is our table array here?
What we did earlier, the old table from where we're looking.
The old
That's
table.
B3.
Yeah. To D20. And then we'll put a comma again. And then it's asking you for your column index number. What is the column index number?
For first name, it will be 3.
It's 3, so 3. And then we'll put a comma again, and it's asking us, it's even brought out true or false. What do we want to pick?
False.
False. And then close your brackets. And there you have it. So you don't really have to bring out the box. Once you know that, you just need to put in your lookup value, your table, your column index, and true or false. So it's really, really easy to do. So you don't have to go through bringing up the formula text box. You can easily do that. Can someone help us with the last name, please? Using without a function box. Can someone else help us?
Yeah. So it'd be equals VLOOKUP.
Equals V. Look
Open
up.
bracket.
Open a bracket.
And then it would be J4 as well.
J4.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your next one would be from B.
Yeah, but don't forget that once you put your J4, you have to put a comma.
Yeah, comma. So your B3 to D20, comma.
B3 to D20, comma.
Yeah, and then you would put a 2.
2.
Yeah, and then false. And then
false. Thank you. I hope we got that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now is the thing with Excel is once you type your formula in once, you really don't have to type it in again. So since we've typed in where we did Brad, I'm going to delete this. Where we did Brad and we typed in our formula, we actually don't need to type this formula in again. All we need to do is just drag it down. Once we drag it down, we would get, the other, it will fill out, it will fill it out once we drag it down. Are we familiar with dragging down formula? So it worked for some and did not work for some. And we're going to get to that, why it did not work. When we type our formula in, so there's something you call like relative reference and absolute reference in Excel. I'm going to delete these ones. If we look at Brad here, if you click on the formula here, you can see it would highlight the cells you have in that formula. So you can see the employee ID highlighted. We can see the table highlighted. Okay. When I drag it to the next column, can we see what it has done? We can see that the table has now shifted. And the employee ID that was selected before has shifted. And we don't want it to do that. And before I even get before I get to this bit, there's something I need to let us know in VLOOKUP. When you're looking up your unique reference, your table array, the unique reference you are using has to be on the first column of the table that you are selecting. Otherwise, your VLOOKUP will not work. So if we do a VLOOKUP, if for any reason we select, if we select the table like this, from A3 to D20 and enter, the VLOOKUP will not work. And we're sure that, the information we need is on that table. It is selected. But your unique ID, your lookup value, has to be on the first column of the table you're selecting. Otherwise, it won't find it because it's just looking at for that figure on the first column and then returning any figure on like subsequent columns. So you always have to make sure that your table has the lookup value on the first column, which is why this has not worked. So I will go back to Brad.
So, Kevin, just a quick question. So every time you're using the VLOOKUP now, and maybe the value that is of reference is in the middle, you have to change the location of the column.
You have to start from that middle.
You have to start from the middle, not change it.
Yeah. You don't, because it might be the table that you can't change the location.
But what if the value is behind in the part where you did not select?
If it is behind, if you don't change, so for instance, if your lookup value is John and you want to look up employee ID,
Yes.
you won't be able to use VLOOKUP for that.
Okay.
For that, you're going to have to use index and match, and we're going to get to index and match later on.
Okay.
Okay. Unless you actually like change the location, then your VLOOKUP will not work.
Okay.
But we know that you have some data that you can't really change the location, otherwise you mess things up. So you are going to have to use index and match for that. So index and match does the same thing as lookup, but it's just a bit more flexible. Okay, so this so if I drag it to the last name, you would expect that this formula should work, right? But why does it not work? Why does it not work?
Because the table has moved.
The table has moved. Apart from the table moving, what else has moved?
The employee ID is omitted.
So the employee ID has moved. So to prevent that, what we need to do is for the items, for the data that we don't want to move, if we don't want it to move, we have to like freeze it. So that anywhere you drag that formula to, it would only be looking at that table. And the way we freeze it is we had a dollar. We had the dollar sign. So either the column, the row, or both of them. So if you look at this Brad, for instance, we know that we're only going to be using employee ID, column J, right? And we know that we can either use J4, J5, J6. So the only bit we need to freeze there is column J. So I'm going to click here, and this J here, I'm going to put a dollar in front of it. So what I've done for this cell J4 is that anywhere I drag this formula to, it would always be on column J. It would not move from column J. And 4, I want 4 to be flexible. So I'm not going to freeze 4 because I want to be able to drag this formula down so that I can do the first name and last name for all of them all the way down. And one thing I need to freeze again is the table. We're only going to be looking at this table. So I'm going to freeze this table. If you're using a keyboard and you have the function F4, you can use F4 to freeze it. When you press your F4, it will freeze it. Or you can type it in manually. So if I'll put a dollar in front of B, I'll put a dollar in front of 3. What I've done is cell B3, I've frozen that cell. It will not move from there. No matter where I put this formula, that is where it's going to be looking at. I'm going to put another dollar in front of D, and I'm going to put a dollar in front of 20. And what I've effectively done is I've frozen that table. And then it won't change. So I'm going to drag it to this last name again, and then you will see what it's going to do. So if I come here, you can see that it has not moved from employee ID, and it has not moved from the table. But why do we have Brad instead of last name? Because we want last name, right? But we have the first name. Why do we have that? What else do we need to change here to make it
the column number? The
column number. That unfortunately you have to change it. So if you change the column number to the last name's column number is 2. So all we need to do is change that column number to 2 and enter. And once I have this 2, I can now drag this all the way down. And then it would work. Because anywhere you click on, it would only be looking at this table, and it will be looking at the employee ID for that person. Is this clear? So anytime you want to freeze a formula, you don't want to freeze the formula on one cell. Either you want to freeze the row or you want to freeze the column, always put the dollar sign, and that will freeze it. Anywhere you move that formula to, it would always reference, wherever you're frozen it. Is that clear?
got a quick question. See, how you got the last table, sorry, the last name for that table. Was it in that first formula that you also put a 2, or did you write another formula on the last name table?
The last name, the only thing, it was that same formula. The only thing we changed was the column number. So once you have the, I'm gonna delete this. Once you have your formula written, right, and you are frozen where you need to freeze, just drag it anyway, and it would work. So I'm going to drag this to the last name, and we know that the last name, the column for the last name is 2. So I'm going to change this to 2, and that's the only thing I've changed. And then you can now drag this all the way down. Is that clear? So if you're dragging it anywhere, just make sure that you freeze it and then change the column to any column you want it to pick. And then you can drag it all the way down. Okay?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I've practiced this dragging down before on some other data sets, and every time I drag something down, I find out that it only ever copies the same value at the top, so it doesn't come up with other values. If you understand what I mean.
If you check what you were dragging down, it's probably frozen. So if it is frozen, if you look at the formula you're dragging down, if it's frozen, if it's all frozen, then it won't work. So you have to unfreeze what you have to unfreeze what you need. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you now. So when we had Brad, if you see, we only froze J, and we did not freeze the row because we want the row to change. If I freeze the row, if I freeze row, that's J4. I've frozen the row, okay? If I drag it down, it will not change because anywhere you click on, it's still looking at this J4. And that's because I've frozen the row on 4 and I've frozen the column on J. But we don't want to do that. We only need to freeze the column because we want the rows to change because we're dragging this formula down. So if I take off the dollar in front of the 4, and then you can now drag it down, and then it will work because it will now reference, the row is not frozen, only the column is frozen. So if you check the formula you are dragging down, is because it is frozen on that row and that column. That's why it's not changing. Is that clear?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay. So if this employee ID, let's do an example. Okay. And so we know that. So I'm going to delete this. Okay. So we remember that the first one, the one we are using, this one is Brad, right? We all know it's Brad. That's Brad. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to store this data and put and paste it here. So I have this employee ID. I've duplicated it on this table. Let's see what it's going to do here. Let's do a lookup equal to V lookup. My lookup value is my employee ID, comma. Look for it on this table, comma, bring me the third column and false. Enter. What has it brought in? He has brought in Peter. Even though we know that, while Peter has this employee ID, Brad also has this employee ID. So whatever, we know that whatever data, while Peter also has that employee ID, Brad also has that employee ID. So if we extract this data and just base it on Peter having his employee ID, then it will be wrong because it's not just Peter with that employee ID. So VLOOKUP will not be the best formula to use if you don't have a unique field to look up. So you might want to use something else, or you might want to create a unique field so that you can bring in the right data. And before you start VLOOKUP, always check that your field is unique. Any field you want to look up, any field you want to use as your lookup value, always check that the field is unique. And you can do you can use conditional formatting to check if your field is unique. And that is, on the field, on the table you're looking, where you're bringing the data from, make sure that value is unique. So the way to check is you can use conditional formatting to check. So if I click on this employee ID, I can go to conditional formatting and go to highlight cells rules, and I'm going to go to duplicate values. And what it's going to come up with, if you find a duplicate, fill it with red, just color, highlight it for me, and okay. So can you see at the first glance, we can see that this and this are duplicates. So knowing that I have duplicates on my lookup table, I'm not going to use VLOOKUP because it's not going to work unless I create another unique field. So I have to look for something unique that is just unique that I can use to look up.
Can you come again how you got those two colored?
So what I did was I used conditional formatting. So you can imagine if you have like a long list, you can have thousands of lines of rows, and you don't know if you can literally check one by one if there are duplicates or not. So before you do any VLOOKUP, always check for duplicates. So if you highlight it, if you go to Home, conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, duplicate values, and then OK. And then you can put a filter on to filter by the duplicate. So if you put a filter on, and then you can filter by color, and then those are the duplicates. So if you are working with, large amount of data, that is a fast way to check for duplicates. So you can always highlight it and then just filter it, and then you see if there are duplicates or not. I'm going to undo everything I have done. Yeah. Okay. So we've done the first name and last name. Okay, let's I'm gonna redo the VLOOKUP here. And I'm gonna use my function button to freeze. That's my F4 button to freeze, comma, first name is 3, comma, false. Enter. And then I can drag this. I'll change this to 2. And then I can drag this all the way down. Okay. Now we want to add city and state. Interesting. Let's add city and state to this. Let's add city and state to this. Our city and state is on So this is another table here that we need to bring information in for. So we want to know where these employees, where they live, the city and the state. What should we do? Should we type in VLOOKUP again? Who's going to help us? Should we do VLOOKUP again or drag the formula? Hello? Okay.
Hi.
Sorry?
I would just need someone else to say something here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we could repeat the VLOOKUP, because if we drag the formula, then we have to change quite a few things. The table has changed. You know, we still have the same employee ID, but we have to change the table. So it's either we do another VLOOKUP or we drag over and change everything.
Let's drag it.
Okay.
Let's drag it and see. So there's really no point, typing it again. Let's drag it. And remember that we've frozen the employee ID. So that will not change. But we just need to change where the table is looking at, right?
Yeah.
So look at this. So that's our table. I can just move it. I'm just moving the table and I'm moving it to here. Enter. And that is it. So we only had to point the table somewhere else. Look at that. So we only need to point the table somewhere else. We're looking for city, which is column 2. How easy is that? Instead of typing it out again. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Let me do that again. Let me do that again. So I've just dragged it to city. Click on the formula bar. Our employee ID is still right. I just need to move this table and move it to the table down. And that is it, enter. And I have my city. And for the state, if I drag it to the side, I already have the right table. All I need to do is change the column. I just change this column to 3 and enter. And then we have the city and the state, and we drag it down. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So we are populating our table, and this is populating it from different sources. And one thing I need to say is that the other tables can actually be on different. It can be on different tabs. It can be on different worksheets altogether. It can be in a different file or different folder altogether. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is just open it up and select, and then it will pull that information in for you. The last thing we're going to do here is we have the pay band, we have the pay table here. So we want to know what pay band all these employees fit into. What pay band do they fit into? Control C. So we have their pay here. We want to see what pay band they fit into. And this is where we use the true function, because this is going to be, this is just a range. So the first thing, we don't need to retype the formula. We can still continue to drag, because we're using, well, we can drag. We're using different things to look up. So we're looking up this pay. We're looking here. So this is the pay minimum, and we're looking at it up in this pay band. This is actually going to give me an error, so I'll change this to 20. No, I'm not changing it. Let's see what happens. Okay. So what I would do is, okay, let's type it again. Equal to VLOOKUP. What I want to look up is the pay. So I click on pay. And don't forget to freeze your column. So comma. Then my table, this is where I want to look up. This is my lookup table. I'll look it up here. And then I will freeze my table. I need my table frozen, comma. And what I want to look up is the pay band, which is it's just 2 columns on this table anyway. So it's column 2. I want it to bring in the pay band, and then comma. And I'm going to use true here because I only want an approximate match. I don't want an exact. We just want it in a range. So I'm going to use true here, and then close my bracket and enter. So this pay band 84289 is in pay level C. So it looks at the closest, as in the minimum. So it starts from the minimum and puts it in that level. If you pick the false, it would only be looking for 84289, and it is not on that table. So it would not work, which is why we use a true, because we just want like a range. And it's a banded, the pay scale is band, it's just a band. So we put it in that band. And then we drag it all the way down. So it looks for the minimum, and then it just puts it in that band that would have that figure in as the minimum. So like the 84, it will band it with 75 level C. It will not put it
Can
in.
you repeat the band formula?
Sorry?
Can you come again with the band formula, please?
Okay,
Please.
so it's still the same. It's still the same formula we've been using. The only difference is that we put a true instead of false. So it's still the same formula, but we put an approximate match instead of an exact match.
Kemi, sorry, is it not supposed to be K4?
Yeah, so it's K4, yeah.
Okay, because
so we're looking up the value.
Oh yeah.
The pay.
Yeah. So it should be K4.
Yeah. So that's K4.
Yeah.
And we're looking it up
table.
in this table here.
Okay. That's B47 to C52.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Then it will be we are looking at that's the third one, which is 3.
No, this table that we're looking at is just 2 columns.
Oh, sorry. We are looking from one. So we are going to be counting from. Are we going to be counting the pay report from? Because where we are looking from is okay. No, okay. It's supposed to be 2.
A table. Yeah, a table is we've only selected 2 columns on the table.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, 2. So it's quite confusing. Yeah.
So you just count So you just select this and you count. And I mean, different Excel versions of some versions of Excel, when you select, it will actually count for you. Because sometimes you can actually select like from column A to column CZ or something like that, and then you lose count. So some Excel, I think the newer ones, would actually count. It will count the columns for you. So you know that it's just comma and then you put that number of columns. But I think this is an older version. I'm not sure what version is this. So this one, you have to count yourself.
Yeah. Then Kemi, one more thing. Sorry. So I did mine now, and I like tried to duplicate it, like drag it all the way down. But for Florida, that's
That shows an
for
error,
Michael
right?
Jordan.
That was an error. I'm going to tell you why. Because I changed my figure. So the figure you have, this is 23,000.
Okay.
So it's going to give you an error.
Yeah.
And the reason why it gives you an error is it looks at the minimum. It starts from the minimum we have on the table is 25.
Yeah.
Which is level A.
Yeah.
So when you have this type of error, you know that if you are working with like an organization's data, you know that you're actually maybe you are missing a pay band, or maybe this pay is incorrect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we need to have an error. We need to get, we're going to get to errors now. And so I have 23,000, which is an error. So you come up with NA.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of errors that you get when using VLOOKUP. It's possible that, it just cannot find that data. And because you have picked an exact match, then it will come up with an error. So let's deal with errors in let's deal with errors here. So when you have an error.
Sorry, before we go into the error quickly. I said before we go into the error quickly.
All right, okay.
So, yeah, you said the true is used for something that is close. So we want to believe that all these figures, all these pays, it categorize them based on their closeness to the
no, but there's a minimum. So it starts from
that's
that
what
minimum.
I'm going to ask. That's what I'm going to ask. What's the minimum? So
the minimum is what you have here on the pay on your table.
Okay. So anything lower than 25.
Anything lower than 25, it won't
Count it. Oh, okay.
It won't count it, yeah. It's gonna come up with an error. So it starts from pay minimum. So you will start from
25.
That 25 and look at it up.
Okay.
And then puts you, just above that 25. So if you are 51, it will put you in level B.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So VLOOKUP and errors. You know that when you do VLOOKUP, sometimes you come up with an error. And that's because maybe the data you're looking for is not there. So it doesn't have a choice. It will come up with an error. So you come up with not applicable. That means I've looked for this data. I've looked for this data where you've asked me to look for it, and it's not there. So we come up with NA. And the annoying thing with NA is that you can't add it up. So for instance, if the field we are bringing in is like what we're meant to bring in is like maybe we're meant to bring in numbers, for instance. And then we have NA. I'm going to copy this NA. And you know that, normally, the numbers you are bringing in, you want to add them together in what you're doing. But because of these NAs that are coming, you know that there will be NAs. And you know that, it's not going to find everything. But the ones you have found, okay, I want to add them together. But because you have NA on your list, your song will not work, right? So these NAs can be quite annoying. And the way to deal with NAs is you can use a formula to actually change the NAs to like maybe blank or maybe 0 or whatever you want to change it to really. So it might be that, if there's an error, maybe you think that, okay, it should be able to bring it in. And if there's an error, maybe I need to like do another check or something there. I think I have this on another module, but I will show us now. And then when we get to that one, we'll do it again. So we're going to use a function called if error. We're going to use if error to take out the earnings. Let me come here and use one of these. So let's assume that 795577 is not here. I'm just going to take out this 79577. I'm going to delete that. So once I deleted that employee ID here, can see that everything, this has now changed to, so this has now changed to error because 795574 is not here. It's not in the table, so he can't find it. However, I want to put like a formula to say, if you cannot find this, maybe leave it blank. Let's start with leaving it blank, or yeah, let's start with leaving it blank. I'm going to use a formula called if error. So what I will do is, I have my formula here. I will start with if error, and what I'm saying is that if you come up with an error, this is what you should do. So if error, I'm saying if this formula comes up with an error, this is what I want to happen. I want you to leave it blank. So to leave it blank, you just start with your double apostrophe, put a space and another one, and then close the bracket and enter. Oh yeah, I didn't put my comma.
Comma.
Start with a comma, yeah, and enter. So what I've done is I've said, okay, anytime I put this formula, once you put the if error, if it's going to come up with an error, just give it a blank space. I don't want to see that any. And that is what it has done. So I can actually drag it all the way down. So sometimes it's good to build if error into your formula. But the only thing to be aware of in the if error is sometimes the data might be there, and maybe because of your formatting, it's not picking it, and then you will think that the data is not there because you have said make it blank. So you're going to have a lot of blank spaces. So it's always good to like do it first. Make sure you have an idea of how many errors you're expecting. So if it's like excessive, just check that your if error is not covering up an actual error, and it's not like it can't find it.
But why did it not fix the error on the last name aisle?
The error here?
Yes.
Because I haven't put the formula there. I've just put the formula here. If I drag it here, it will fix it. And my last name is still. So I've only put this formula in that one cell, which is why it has not affected this one.
Right. Okay.
So I can change all my formula to that. And then if you can find it, it's fine. If you can't find it, it's blank. So I don't have that if error. If it's like a number or something, if it's a number field I'm bringing it, I can say, okay, make it 0. So I can say make it 0, and then it's 0. If for 0, I don't even need to. I don't need to put that. Or it might be that you want to say, okay, if it's an error, maybe it needs to flag it to you. So you can say, please check this. And then if it's an error, it will come up with please check this. So if you can't find it, maybe you need to put something on the system just to, draw your attention to something. And then you can just put anything you want, really, anything you want it to do when it finds an error, just put it in here. Okay? Is this clear? Are we comfortable with VLOOKUP? No. I mean, you need to practice it. Practice it with, with data. You can get data anywhere and just make sure you practice it. Once you practice, it becomes like a part and parcel of it. So VLOOKUP is actually quite relatively easy to do, as long as you know that the rules are you must have unique fields. If you don't have unique fields, it will just look for the first one, pick the first one, and bring it in. That's all it will do. It doesn't care about the rest. Once it finds the first thing it's looking for, that's it. It just brings it in. So you have to make sure that the fields you're using are unique. when you select your table, what you're looking up has to be on the first column of that table. Always has to be on the first column of that table. Otherwise, you come up with an error. And once you type your formula first, if you need to drag the formula, make sure you freeze the appropriate cells. If you need to freeze your table, freeze the column and the row. If you need to freeze cells, depending on what you want it to do, you can either freeze both of them or freeze the column or freeze the row. And then you can drag that formula and move your table anywhere you want it to be. Okay, let's look at Hlook. Are we happy to move on to Hlook?
You know the if error method?
Yeah.
Is that specifically just for VLOOKUP, or you can apply it to other things?
You can apply it to anything. You can apply it to any formula at all.
Okay.
Any formula you can apply it to. So for instance, if let's assume, let me say to, so equal to this divided by this. I'm just doing a simple, let's assume this is blank. What's going to give me an error? I need an error. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay. So you can see that I just multiply this because this is 0 and this is, because this is 0, it's giving me an error message, error answer. So you can also apply your if error to anything. So in this case, I can say if, I can add my if error here. If it's an error, if this is an error, just give me 0. Enter. I just always leave the comma out. So what I've done is I've added if error to that, and if it's an error, just give me 0. So you can use you can add your if error to anything, really. As long as you want to replace that error with something else, then you can add your if error to it. So this is just a simple multiplication division formula, and I've added the if error to it. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But be very careful when you use the if error so that you don't miss actual errors, because it would have just covered everything up. Let's move on to Hlook. Hlook. Okay. So I sent another file, Hlook. Does everyone have it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because if you can post it on the Telegram group as well.
It's on the group already. Both files is on the Telegram group. So I think everybody has it. Maybe just give them time to open it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready to go on with it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hlook is also lookup. It's just looking it up a different way. So while VLOOKUP looks up the column, Hlook looks up the row. So if you are looking something up on the row, if your data is set up in a different way, you can use Hlook to actually look up your information. And it works the same way like VLOOKUP really. It's just where it's it's just looking up the row as against the column. So it's just like when you swap the axis, something like that. So we have this data, we have employee ID, we have employee ID. For some reason they are on, all these ones are on, columns instead of like rows. We have the employee name, we have department, we have salary, we have bonus, and we have total pay, all spread out like this. And what we want to do is, we want to look up, like the first question is, what's the department of employee with ID 502? So we want to look up the departments. So we're looking up this row 5. And what we're looking up, our lookup value will be on row 3. Let's start with the dialog box. Equal to H lookup. We open a bracket. You can see that it's exactly the same as the VLOOKUP. It's just the only difference is just the row index number. VLOOKUP will say column index number. HLOOKUP is row index number. So what our lookup value? Our lookup value is, we're looking for 502, employee ID 502. Our table array is this is our table array. Let's select our table to the side. Our row index number, we have selected our table, our row 1, 2, 3. That is where the department is. So we'll put 3. And either do we want exact match or or closest match? We want exact match, so it will be false. And okay. And we have employee ID 502, Andy is in customer service. So we can see that it's brought in customer service. Did someone want to ask a question?
Sorry, please, what did you put for row index number?
The row index number, remember we selected this is our table. And we're looking for row, so these are row 1. That's row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, and row 6. Our department is on row 3, so we'll put 3 as our row index number. It's exactly the same like VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is looking up the column. HLOOKUP is looking up the row.
Rows, okay.
So if we do equal to HLOOKUP, open a bracket. What's our lookup value? What will be our lookup value here?
5.
Sorry?
B12.
B12, yes, B12. And then we'll put a comma. What's our table?
B3 to L8.
B3 to L8, yeah? And comma. Our row index number?
3.
3, because we're looking for department. Comma.
Yeah, 4.
And false. We want an exact match and enter. And then we can see 502 is Andy in customer service. And of course, with the VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP as well, when you select your table, your lookup value has to be on the first row. In VLOOKUP, it has to be on the first column. In this, it has to be on the first row. And so what's the salary of employee with ID 505? Can someone help us with this?
Equal to
Equal to
Hlook
Hlook,
open bracket.
open bracket.
So 505 is that's B16.
B16.
Comma.
Comma.
The table B3 to L8.
B3 to L8. Comma.
505 on the lookup table is column 6.
Well, we're looking for salary.
Salary.
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and false because you are looking for exact value.
False. And enter. We can see that employee 505 salary is 70,000. It's bringing 70,000. Okay. Should we copy and paste this to the last bit?
We can do that, but we have to do some other additional like we did the last time, make some adjustment.
Yeah. So what adjustment do we want to make?
First, we want to make adjustment to the first input. That's where the lookup value. So that should be
okay. So let me copy and paste.
okay.
But before we copy and paste, what should we do first before we copy and paste?
Okay, we want to make I think
lock
first
it
thing I
in.
would do is make the table stationary.
Yeah. So we need to freeze the table.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
So we'll put the $sign behind the B, the 7, the L, and the 12.
So put $sign behind the
B, the 7.
Where's 7?
No, 3 rather, sorry.
So the 3.
And the L.
The L.
And the 12.
There's no 12 here. This is 8.
Oh, okay, 8. Maybe I think it's different. My laptop is different, so I don't know what's happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So
okay, and then do we need to let's put the $sign before B as well, because our lookup values are on B.
Yeah.
So let's put this, and then we have frozen that, and then we can now copy, right? Let's copy, Control C, and paste a Control V. And let's see. So we're looking for total pay, right?
Yeah, so we have to change that to 5, or is it 6? 6.
We have to change the column to 6, to pick 6. And then we know that employee ID with 507, total pay is 30,000. Okay.
Sorry, as I still don't get why we're using 4 and 6. Sorry to take you back, but I don't understand why we're using 4 and 6.
Okay.
Because I'm counting, because I'm hearing people say column 6, and I'm counting the columns, and column 6 is not where they say 6 is.
So in this case, we are doing Hlook, so we are counting the rows, not columns.
Okay.
So when we're doing Vlook, we were counting columns. Hlook, we count rows. And I'm going to show you where the rows are. So this is our table, right? Row 1 is the employee ID. Row 2, employee name. Row 3 is the department. Row 4 is salary. Row 5 is bonus. And row 6 is total pay. So when we're looking for departments, our department is on row 3, 1, 2, 3. So when we're looking for salary, what row is our salary?
4, I get it now.
4. And then when we're looking for total pay, our total pay is on row
6.
6. So that is where the row numbers are coming from.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you can please practice on this. And next week we're going to do index and match. So we need to be comfortable with this. And then we'll do index and match next week. And next week also, we're going to be looking at some logical functions next week. And next week, if we can get to, did we do text to column last week? I can't remember. I don't remember. We're looking at text to column. I honestly don't remember what we did last week. Who remembers what we did last week?
Last week we did pivot table.
We did pivots, we did
Pie
data.
Pie charts.
Charts. Did we do text to column? I don't think we did text to column.
No, we did bar chart.
Okay. So
Editing and stuff.
Okay. So we'll start with index and match next week, which is another form of lookup. But in index and match, instead of always looking up to the right, you can look up anywhere. So it's kind of better than VLOOKUP in some sense, but it's just a little bit more complicated. But it's easy to get. And we'll look at some if functions. So you're going to need if functions, and then we'll see where we can get to next week. Okay?
Okay.
So please practice this. Only practice can, VLOOKUP is practice. Just practice. Once you practice a few times, then you get it. You see, you always get it. And sometimes when you say a VLOOKUP function, if you don't want to type it, just copy that function. Sometimes when you say a formula, you just need to, if you copy it, you can click on the formula bar and see what it is referencing. So as long as you have a faint idea of what that formula is doing, you can always like move it around to do what you want it to do. So sometimes we see some complicated formulas. That's because they have maybe they've built it, like they've nested all the formulas together. And instead of recreating that formula, you can just click on it and see what cell is referencing and just apply it to your work until you're familiar with that formula.
Tell me one more thing there. So you can use that if error too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use if error too. Yeah. So you can put if error anywhere. So for instance, let's see, if we make this an error, like we're looking at column 4, our table only has, row 4. Our table only has 6 rows, right? If I put like row 8 here, it's going to come up with an error. Because it's like, you only have a table with 6 rows, and you're asking me to bring in row 8. So it's going to come up with an error. This type of error is a genuine error. So if we use if error to cover this up, then you wouldn't realize that you've actually made an error in the formula. So rather than correcting it, you think that you just cannot find it, but actually you've made an error. Okay. So if we want to use if error here, if I do if error, open the bracket, and I say just if it's an error, bring 0. And it's just going to bring 0. And I will think that, oh, it can't find this employee ID for some reason. But actually, I've made a mistake. The formula is wrong. Yeah, the formula is wrong. So I always use that if error cautiously so that it doesn't if I want to use if error, I will first do the lookup first and make sure that my formula is actually correct. Yeah. And then if I now want to get rid of the errors, then I'll now add the if error to it. Otherwise, if you add it from the beginning, if there's an actual mistake there, you won't pick it up. You just think that it can't find that data.
Thank you.
Okay. And of course, if it's not an error, if you can find it, then it finds it. Salary is row 4, not 6. And then it brings it in. It only works, it only kicks in when there's an error. So if there's no error, it's fine. It will give you the correct answer. Okay. And yeah, so okay, so we've done the copy. Okay. I think that's where we're going to end tonight. The recording. Oh well, I haven't gotten